So, welcome back. Yes, as promised, here is a little bit of bonus content that I'm adding to the video, which is two actually non-Ableton native plugins that I would like to show you. Before we do that, I promised in the longer video that I did before, I realized actually in the middle of recording that other video, my cable was stuck on the microphone, so sorry about that. My sound engineering teachers would be very unimpressed. Peter, if you're out there, if you do get to see this, thank you for all the awesome tips, and it was a pleasure learning from you. So I mentioned that there's a super cool video. It's actually not Siny, it's PML, Production Music Live, which is another company. I think they're also based in Germany that does very, very cool tutorials. And this one is actually one they've put for free on YouTube, which I really respect. I think it's awesome that people do this to share the knowledge. So this is a gentleman called Jonas Saalbach, makes super cool music. And in this video, he does a track in 99 minutes, including sequencing and everything. It's very impressive to see. It's in English, I think.
The bass.
Yes, it is in English. Very much recommend seeing this. The whole thing is just like, wow, okay. Yeah, you can tell the guy is super experienced and how quickly he builds his sequence and validates if elements are going to work in the drop and stuff. It's really quite brilliant. So really, really cool, Mr. Saalbach, to see this. Very, very cool. Learn a lot from your tutorial also. Yeah, coming back to the plugin that I want to show you in this bonus content, and that is from Plugin Alliance. It's called ADPTR Metric A, and it's basically an A/B comparison plugin, very similar to the workflow that I've built here that you may remember from the video that I did to be able to switch between the track you're working on and a reference. But this plugin makes it a little bit different so that you can actually have multiple references just available to you at the click of a button. And the thing that really sets this apart is all the information you can get on the comparison using these tools at the top. So let's have a quick look and listen to what this plugin sounds like and looks like. It'll start with your DAW. So now I've switched over to this reference track. That's pretty much the way I have it set up. So right now we're watching the spectrum of that reference track. Of course, these are all WAV files. Just, of course, don't use MP3s for this. Now we're going over to the track that I'm working on. And obviously, the cool thing is I can switch between them. But what I love is that I can see this spectrum analyzer layered, and I can see how do the tracks match up visually. I think as is pretty obvious from this, this was my reference track for the track and for the setup actually of my whole set. Like I thought the frequency and everything done about this track was really good. I've heard it at a few parties. It sounded sick. In the mastering, they have some really nice gnarly analog distortion on it that I haven't been able to replicate yet. I'm working on it. But yeah, it's you can see kind of how close you are with the track that you're working on. So let's have one quick last look at that. So the blue line here is my track, the orange line is the reference track. And you could reference to, of course, different tracks also. So we can go over to a Jan Blomkes track here, which is, yeah, what a fantastic musician. Such a great singer also, and super cool guy from what I've seen in videos of him, yeah, chatting a bit and his general vibe. Love your music, Jan. Really, really love your music. So let's have a listen to his track, and let's have a look what that looks like on the spectrum analyzer.
Block the sight. I'm right, but don't kill. I'm red, just fight. Let's throw in that chemicals into the fires. Those
So as I hope you can see, I'm pretty close. Like I'm in the ballpark here with the way that I've mixed and mastered that track. And yeah, it's just really great to be able to see how far off are you or not from what it is you're doing. You can set loops on a track so that you're always just listening to one section. Maybe you don't want to hear the break, but you just want to have it where everything's going, so you can match a little bit your mix and your mastering to that. There's a correlation meter here, which I find super confusing.
So genuine. So who are the villains? What should be?
Actually, now looking at it, it slowly starts to make sense. So you can see there's very little negative phase in the low end. I think that's what it's showing. I haven't worked with this too much, but yeah, it makes sense from a sound engineering point of view. You want your speakers to be moving forward and punching in the low end, and not to have out of phase elements in there.
Don't know anymore. I should believe.
My track has a bit more of that, as you may have seen in the blue, so there's still some work left to do for the future. There's a stereo image, which will show you how wide your tracks are. So this is, left, right. This is frequency from bass to high, and this shows you how wide are your elements in the mix. You can see I have substantial stereo information in the low end. That's not good. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, something to improve on. If we listen to Mr. Blomqvist's track. It's very clean down there, and you'll see that across a lot of professional mixes and masters. There is a dynamic section, which I found super useful to know if my track is loud enough. So in this case, my track is actually louder than the Jan Blomqvist track. That's not always good. It can mean things are too compressed. I think my reference for this track was Artbat. As you can see, that is super, super close. But yeah, of course, loudness comes at the cost of punch and dynamics usually. So being super, super loud isn't always great. But since I knew I was going to put this out to streaming, I mastered it pretty loud. Then there's a loudness meter in this, which is, I think, also very, very handy. So you have your momentary loudness, your short-term loudness, and your integrated loudness. And integrated LUFS is kind of the one we want to look at. That's the one that tells you the most about your track and what's happening there. So let me rewind, or let me go to this loop, actually, of this track, so we're in a loud part. So we can see here that the loudness of these tracks is quite comparable. It's not bad. Yeah, so that's also super useful just to know, where am I? And what I've also really liked is this section down here, which besides the looping area is something that I've now come more to grips with. So you can listen to just the really low subs of someone's track. And then switch over to your track. And just from that rumble and kind of that woo woo, you can tell if you've overdone it or if it's a little bit thin. It's a really useful comparison. Artbat is fatter. No surprise there. And yeah, those guys know what they're doing. And they're mastering engineers, I'm sure. But, there's a nice amount of sub and rumble on my track. I'm quite happy with this track. It's as good as I've gotten things to sound. It sounds good on a lot of different systems. You can listen to sort of the basses up to a higher area. You can listen to your low mids, and just the highs. So yeah. Really, really, really useful tool. I have a whole bunch of different kinds of references. Some are loud, some are lower, some are very clean, some are distorted. And this just really helps me on my way to make sure that what I'm working on is going towards something that I know will have a good output and a good sound. So if if you have a little bit of money left over, I could recommend this. It's about 30 bucks, I think, if you get it on discount. It's also part of the bundle, of course, over at Plugin Alliance, but I think it's 30 bucks. Sander, thank you, my friend. If you want to get this, because yeah, it makes life so much easier, and you can reference and get a lot of much more detailed information than on the Ableton meter from using this plugin. So this is absolutely my top recommendation if you're starting out in producing, or if you're not entirely happy with the mixes and masters you're making. This thing will help a lot. Just for the whole workflow. It's the only plugin of its kind. I tried to look for a free one that does this. I couldn't find one. So absolutely recommended. Maybe just let's have a quick listen at this track because we can. Because I think this is one of the most amazing productions I've ever heard from Mr. Frank Wiedemann and RyX. Yeah, let's have a quick listen to this because I actually really feel like listening to this. And if you don't know it, I think you're in for a treat.
Turn my back and we're out of phase. All illusions are hidden faith. All my lessons are heaven sent. Higher learning to get a breath in. Some I lose and some I win. All I feed in the deep within. Build my castles to cave them all. Keep on falling. You wanted my love. You wanted my love to break us down. You wanted my love.
What an amazing track. This one still gets me every time after, I don't know, what is it now, 3-4 years? What an incredible low end. What a beautiful vocal. It's just so clean and punchy and warm and fat. So yeah, Frank did say that they get their stuff professionally mixed and mastered by some wizard somewhere. And yeah, he said it's totally worth it to get that done because, yeah, well, the results speak for themselves. So they just focus on composition. And someone that probably has all the gear and all the knowledge for sure mixes their music for them, which I think is really smart. If you're doing this professionally, I think that's a really good way to go. Yes, so that is from Plugin Alliance, the Metric AB plugin. Super recommended. I think it's a really cool thing. One thing I just realized, there is a target loudness that you can set here. So you can say, do I want it to be, you know, right for Spotify or for YouTube? And where it turns red, that's where you're going to be turned down by those platforms so that loudness stays equal. That's what they aim for. But I have mastered tracks like at that level and realized that when you come up on Spotify and then the next track comes that's just been mastered to, you know, oblivion, you hear a difference. Your track will still feel softer, even though it has more dynamics. So I do try to aim to the sort of market norm these days, which is sort of -9, -8 LUFS integrated loudness, which, yeah, is what you're going to see on a lot of tracks if you're listening to them. Let's have a quick looky. Yeah, it was like -8.5 or something like that around there. Yeah, you can learn a lot from these kinds of plugins and listening to other people's tracks and seeing what's happening there and what's happening with the frequencies. Like I had an experience where I played at a club and no, I played outdoor actually on a kind of smallish system. And when I was playing, I realized, man, some of my basses, they're not punching as much as they should be. Something's not right. And what I realized when I came to the studio and listened to the tracks is that I had much more energy down here where the very pro tracks just dropped off. So I fixed that since then. You can see mine is now very close, but I had a buildup of energy there, and that was just clogging up the possibility that those speakers were having to output sound. So, you know, just seeing those kinds of things and hearing them really, really helps in production, especially if we don't have the luxury of a really good monitoring system or a well-dampened and treated room. And for that, actually, I have a second tip that I would love to share with you, which I will do a separate video about. So thank you for this. Big shout out to Dirk and the guys at Plugin Alliance for making tons of great plugins, but this one I really think is a game changer. And yeah, see you on the next one.